My name is Jesse Kreger, and I'm a second-year ARCS scholar and fourth-year Ph.D. student in the Department of Mathematics at UCI. I work on the within-host mathematical modeling of disease with Natalia Komarova and Dominique Vodderts. You've probably seen a lot of mathematical models recently that describe the spread of things like the coronavirus from person to person in large populations. I look at the evolutionary dynamics of things like viruses and cancer within a single person that spread from cell to cell. In particular, I look at the evolutionary dynamics of viruses that reproduce, mutate, and are selected for by things like immune responses and drug treatments. These evolutionary dynamics can be easily described by mathematical equations and then cooked into mathematical models. These mathematical models are especially important for viruses such as HIV, which evolve at such rapid rates that they are very difficult to treat. Along with the high mutation rate, there are many other biological processes that affect the high evolutionary potential of HIV. In particular, multiple transmission pathways exist within the body, cells can be infected with more than one copy of the virus, and different viral copies with different viral genomes can actually interact within a single cell. These components of infection can all be described using mathematical models, which then can be used to understand the dynamics of this infection taking place within the body. Since laboratory experiments manipulating each of these different components of infection are difficult, we can instead build mathematical models and simulate them stochastically to replace the experiments. These stochastic simulations can then lead to biological predictions, which give us a better understanding of the evolutionary and physiological nature of diseases like viruses such as HIV and cancer. I'd like to thank the ARCS organization for their generous support of my research, which will lead to better understanding and hopefully better treatment of diseases like HIV. ARCS support has given me access to additional computational power through things like high-performance clusters, as well as the ability to travel all around the world for important conferences. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Alexandra and I'm a second-year ARCS scholar. And actually, I just finished my PhD defense about 2 months ago. So today I wanted to talk to you about what I was working on during my PhD, my main research, and then tell you a little bit about what I'm doing now as well. So during my PhD, I worked in this very highly interdisciplinary field called biomems. And essentially what it is it uses microfabrication and nanotechnology techniques to probe the biological domain. And what I did was use those techniques, use material science, physics, all of these different disciplines to solve different medical and biological problems. The main project that I worked on had to do with stem cell therapy for neural disorders such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and MS, and even depression. And what I did was I developed a material. It was a carbon conductive material, and it was an engineered environment essentially that would be able to not only guide the growth and differentiation of neural stem cells towards specific lineages, but also could act as a simultaneous sensor so that scientists or doctors could know exactly what was growing on that material and whether a certain type of cell was basically produced. And the main thing that I focused on was actually Parkinson's disorder and not only developing stem cells that could turn into dopamine producing neurons, but then detecting the dopamine that they produced at the same time. So it was kind of like a simultaneous sensor and engineered and guided environment for stem cells. So what I'm doing now, ever since finishing my PhD, is actually I've been working at a medical device company, biotech company called Sensor Kinesis. And we've been working on making a portable point of care device, a little bit larger than a smartphone, that can actually detect different viruses that are present from blood samples. And right now, during this crazy time of coronavirus, my company has been working on detection of, not only detection of SARS-CoV-2 virus, but kind of creating a full viral profile of a person's immune response to that virus. And very recently, our company has partnered with Foxconn, which is one of the largest manufacturers in the world. And we're working to manufacture this device and to begin an intensive round of testing. So I'm very excited about that. I'm the head of the microfluidics department in that company. And hopefully we can get something out. We can make wonderful biomedical devices that can not only save lives, but inform treatment. I also wanted to talk a little bit about how important the ARCS program has been for me. Not only did it give me the resources to work on this amazing research that I've been doing, but it really gave me a community to feel a part of and connections for the rest of my life. I wanted to thank everybody at ARCS and everybody who's supporting the scholars and this wonderful program. I plan, now that I'm finished with my PhD, I plan on supporting this program as well. I really think this supporting science, supporting scholars, and supporting this type of research is the best thing we can do for the future of society. Thank you.
Hi ARCS members! Before I get started, I just wanted to say a big word of thanks to you guys for continuing to support us in our scientific research during this very unusual time. I know that you guys are so wonderful to support us in all the ways that you do during ordinary circumstances, but it means even more given the current situation. So with that, let me introduce myself to anybody that I haven't met already, which I think is most of you at this point. My name is Rebecca Riley. I am a theoretical particle physicist here at UCI, and my research primarily focuses around dark matter and other theoretical particles. For example, something called a leptoquark, which I'll be telling you about shortly. But dark matter, I think, is a word that maybe some of you have heard a bit before. But to give you an idea of why dark matter is such a point of fascination for physicists and for ordinary non-scientists alike, dark matter actually makes up 85% of all of the matter in the universe. Now, that is really rather shocking when you consider that there are trillions of galaxies, and within each of those galaxies, billions of stars, that all of us, humans, Earth, everything that we know, all of that is ordinary matter. So all of that, again, those trillions of galaxies, billions of stars, everything that we know makes up only 15% of the matter in the universe. So kind of shocking if you really think about it, that 85% we really know nothing about. We don't know if this type of matter interacts with ordinary matter like ourselves. We don't know how heavy it is. We don't know really where it is, how it's distributed. So these are very important questions that can help us answer how our universe is evolving, what the fate of our universe is, how particle physics works, how we can go beyond what we know already. So very important question. And with my current project, which you'll see on the poster, this particular project, I have pulled in another facet to this dark matter picture, which is the leptoquarks that I mentioned earlier. So leptoquarks are a type of theoretical particle. No one has ever seen them before. Completely hypothetical. You're not behind the curve there. That have properties of both leptons and quarks, which are two different types of matter in the Standard Model that we ordinarily know about. And the question that I've asked is, if we had just ordinary dark matter models with only dark matter, and if we had, in contrast, a model that had dark matter and these hypothetical particles called leptoquarks, could we distinguish between those two possible realities? And so how I'm trying to answer this question, you can see illustrated, and there's a kind of a box in the middle of the poster. So that's the crux of the research. And what we're doing is we're looking out at a neighboring galaxy, Andromeda, and looking for basically what we call annihilation products of dark matter. When dark matter particles get too close to each other, they can actually kind of eat each other, and then that energy where they ate each other, we say it annihilates, they just fracture off into all of these other particles that can then decay. And so what we want to do here on Earth is we have lots of telescopes, different measuring instruments. We are pointing those toward Andromeda, which you can see in the little picture. We point those toward Andromeda, and we try to pick up all of these particle fragments, essentially these decay products. And I'm trying to ask, if I piece these back together, could I distinguish between a dark matter and leptoquark scenario and a just dark matter scenario? And I do that using simulations, scribbling on a chalkboard, using experimental results. It's a very interesting project, and I should have a paper coming out about it shortly. So I'll be excited to share the results with you, perhaps at next year's Scholar Dinner. And I may have some interesting things along another vein that I'm working on, something called a cue ball. It's very exotic, very exciting. So I look forward to being able to share that with you next year in person. Thank you so much again for continuing to support us, and I hope to see you soon. Please stay well. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Sutherland, and I'm a first-year ARCS scholar here at UC Irvine. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in the math department, where I work with Jesse Wolfson. My general research area is algebraic geometry and algebraic topology. More specifically, I work on solving generic polynomials using geometric and topological approaches. So, what does it mean to solve a generic polynomial? Up at the top in purple, I've provided for you an example of what a polynomial is. We have some variable x, and we're looking at powers of x, possibly multiplied by some coefficients, and then we add them together. When I say that we want to think about generic polynomials, it means that these coefficients, ai, are going to be treated as variables instead of fixed numbers like 2 or 0.01. When I say that we want to solve a generic polynomial, I mean that we want to write down the roots of the polynomial in terms of the coefficients. As a reminder, a root of a polynomial is a number you plug in that when you put it into the polynomial, you get 0. So when n is equal to 2, like in this example, we know how to do this from the quadratic formula, which I've written on the screen and you probably had to memorize when you were in, say, middle school or high school. What we want to do in general is write down a formula like this for all n, not just when n is equal to 2. And moreover, we want these formulas to not just exist, but we want them to be as simple as possible. Now, there's a theorem of Abel that says that we can only write down a solution using square roots, cube roots, fourth roots, functions of that sort, when n is very small, when n is 1, 2, 3, or 4. What's less well known is that Bring gave a solution for the case where n is equal to 5 using 2 square roots, a cube root, and an algebraic function that's now known as a Bring radical. It's like a fifth root, but slightly different. Now, about 100 years later, Klein writes down a solution for the quintic that uses 2 square roots and his icosahedral function. We call it Klein's icosahedral function because he takes the symmetries of the icosahedron and just kind of provides this required function out of thin air. Now, one thing to note is that all of these mth roots, square root, cube root, fourth root, etc., as well as the Bring radical and Klein's icosahedral function, are one variable functions, which means that you only plug in one number to each one of them. My research is on solving the generic polynomial of degree 6, i.e. the case where n is equal to 6. And this builds on work of Klein, Fricke, Hamilton, and others. Now, this case is much harder. There's a conjecture of Hilbert that any solution for this case where n is equal to 6 requires at least one function of two variables. Now, geometrically, this means that we're thinking about objects in two complex dimensions instead of one complex dimension. And that's a lot harder. So how can we make precise the notion of complexity or simplicity here? Well, it's by an invariant that we call resolvent degree. And we can restate Hilbert's conjecture as saying the resolvent degree for solving the n equals 6 case is 2. Now, resolvent degree makes sense across many areas of math. There's a precise way in which solving generic polynomials is universal. And the n equals 6 case is the first situation where we think we have resolvent degree that is equal to 2, i.e. bigger than 1. So better understanding solutions of the sextic in two variables is really fundamental to the theory of resolvent degree. I'd like to thank the ARCS Foundation for your support. With my ARCS funding, I've been able to get a new laptop, new research books and software, and support my research while working from home. It has also facilitated travel to workshops and conferences at UC Riverside and UC San Diego, and support upcoming trips to the University of Chicago and the University of Michigan that I will take when it is safe to do so. Thank you again for supporting me and allowing my research program to thrive.